knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi participates in India's Techade, Chips for Viksit Bharat, and lays the foundation stone of 3 semiconductor projects. Says these projects will help India to become a global hub in semiconductor manufacturing. US President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump clinched their party's nomination as US is all set for the bruising first presidential election rematch in nearly 70 years. Russian President Vladimir Putin warns the West, says Russia ready to use nuclear weapons if its sovereignty is threatened. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in India's Techade, Chips for Viksit Bharat via video conferencing. Prime Minister laid the foundation stone of 3 semiconductor projects worth about 1.25 lakh crore with a goal of development of semiconductors and display manufacturing ecosystems in India. India's semiconductor mission has been set up to create an end-to-end semiconductor ecosystem to enable India to lead the global semiconductor industry. Prime Minister said that today, India is the second largest mobile manufacturer. Talking about national quantum mission, Prime Minister said that there is going to be rapid expansion of the India AI mission. Prime Minister said that the 3 projects will help in making India a global hub of semiconductor production.
21वीं सदी टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन सेंचुरी है और इलेक्ट्रॉनिक चिप के बिना उसकी कल्पना भी नहीं की जा सकती। मेड इन इंडिया चिप, डिजाइन इन इंडिया चिप भारत को आत्मनिर्भरता की तरफ ले जाने में, आधुनिकता की तरफ ले जाने में ये बहुत बड़ा सामर्थ्य पैदा करेगी। पहली, दूसरी और तीसरी औद्योगिक क्रांति के समय भारत अनेक कारणों से पीछे रह गया था, लेकिन अब भारत इंडस्ट्री 4.0 चौथी औद्योगिक क्रांति के नेतृत्व के इरादे से आत्मविश्वास के साथ आगे बढ़ रहा है।
President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump both clinched victory in the party's nomination, marking it the first U.S. presidential election rematch in nearly 70 years. Biden surpassed that delegates' number on Tuesday night as results began to come in from the primary contest in Georgia. Biden faced only token opposition in the Democratic primary campaign. Biden issued a statement after he sealed the Democratic nomination, taking aim at what he called Trump's campaign of resentment, revenge and retribution that threatens the very idea of America. Hours later, Trump also secured the Republican presidential nomination as 4 states held contests, including Georgia, the battleground where Trump faces criminal charges for his efforts to overturn the state's 2020 results. The outcome of Tuesday's voting was essentially predetermined. After Trump's last remaining rival for the Republican nomination, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley ended her presidential campaign following Trump's dominant performance last week on Super Tuesday, when he won 14 out of 15 state contests. Among the states where Biden and Trump won to clinch their respective nominations, the one was Georgia. It was significant for ex-president as he faces criminal charges for his efforts to overturn the state's 2020 results here. Both men have already turned their attention to the November 5th general election, holding dueling rallies in Georgia on Saturday. Ira Spritzer gets us more.
Both Donald Trump and Joe Biden visited Georgia in advance of the primary election, a sign that for both men, this is an important prize in November's general election. It's a state that Biden won by just 12,000 votes in 2020, and a state in which Trump is facing legal charges stemming from his refusal to accept the election results. Trump is seeking to contain any fallout from that dispute, which divided the state's Republicans. And for President Biden, convincing Georgia Democrats to turn out in November is going to be crucial, given what will likely be a very close race. Biden, who has now officially clinched enough delegates to secure his party's nomination, is looking to overcome a lack of enthusiasm from Democrats, as well as those in his party angry about his handling of the Israel-Hamas conflict. Now that it has become clear this will be a rematch of the 2020 election, Biden has also stepped up his attacks on Trump, although typically referring to him as my predecessor instead of saying his name. In a statement following Biden's clinching of the nomination with the Georgia win, Biden said, "Are we going to stand up and defend our democracy or let others tear it down?" The Georgia primary has now concluded, but the events of January 6, 2021, when Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, as well as the legal battle playing out in the state over Trump's attempts to deny the election results, are going to be front and center as the campaign heats up. Ira Spitzer reporting in San Francisco for DD India.
Lawmakers in the U.S. grilled the former special prosecutor who investigated President Joe Biden's handling of classified documents in Congress on Tuesday. Robert Hur was challenged by both political parties over his report's conclusions that Biden did keep some documents, but a jury would unlikely find him guilty of doing so willfully. Caroline Malone reports from Washington on this.
Robert Hur stood by his report when he gave testimony to the House committee on Tuesday. He'd been assigned by the Justice Department to look into Biden's handling of classified documents while he was vice president. He interviewed the current president back in October, just after the Hamas attack on Israel. He said he found that Biden did have classified documents after his time in office, but that it would be unlikely he could be found guilty of it, given a lack of evidence, and also that a jury may see him as well-intentioned and just forgetting about the documents. Democrats on Tuesday took issue with a suggestion of Biden having a problem with his memory, saying that was beyond the scope of the investigation and that Hur must have known it would become political. The Republicans, on the other hand, are campaigning on Biden being too old, and they do talk of issues that they see with his mental capacity. And in the House hearing, Republicans say they thought Hur didn't go far enough, that they see there being a two-tiered justice system, one that lets Biden off, but charges the former president, Donald Trump, who's also facing this time a criminal case for keeping multiple classified documents, some of them top secret, and not returning them immediately to the FBI. Hur said he did see a difference between the two cases, but that he stands by all that was in his report. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday has said that Moscow remains in a state of combat readiness and is fully ready for a nuclear war, but everything is rushing to it. But not everything is rushing to it. In an interview with state media, Putin said that Russia would be ready to use nuclear weapons if its sovereignty was threatened. He said the United States understands that if it deploys American troops on Russian territory or to Ukraine, Russia would treat the move as an intervention. He reiterated that the use of nuclear weapons was spelled out in the Kremlin's nuclear doctrine, its policies setting out the circumstances in which Russia might use its weapons. If the United States conducted nuclear tests, Russia might do the same, he added in the wide-ranging interview. However, Putin said that Russia had never faced the need to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, where the conflict has raged since February 2022. The European Union's AI regulation is a step closer to enactment, with the European lawmakers set to vote on it today. The 27 heads of EU states approved the law in February, and it's now expected to be passed by the Parliament as well. This means the focus will now be on implementation, as Ishan Garg tells us more from Brussels.
The AI Act will be implemented in stages. 20 days after the rules are published, the law will come into force. Companies will then have 3 years to make their AI systems compliant. and that path is a steep one. Under the EU's AI Act, the first one of its kind globally, the bloc is regulating AI by dividing its potential uses into 4 categories, depending on the kind of risk they can pose to society. For example, AI technology being used in driving systems or one affecting the movement of migrants through border checks will be most strictly scrutinized, while systems categorized as minimal risk, such as AI-powered video games, will have little oversight. Officials say most AI systems will fall under this category. Now, there are some uses of AI, though, that have been outlawed completely. Categorization of people based on social indicators or broad use of facial recognition technology are among them. Companies have said they will need time and money to comply with these norms, and some, including the makers of ChatGPT, have said the rules could potentially hurt the growth of the entire industry. Now, it's a reservation that some members of the 27-nation bloc also expressed during the negotiations. France and Germany argued that the rules could hurt their nascent AI sector. But now that the law is close to becoming a reality, the focus is also on how member countries are working on implementing it. The European Commission has already set up an AI office. However, member nations are still working out the best way to regulate. Reports say they will have 12 months to decide which department will oversee the implementation, meaning the execution of the law could be an uphill battle not only for the tech companies but also for the regulators. Ashan Garg in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
The United States will send a new military aid package for Ukraine worth $300 million. President Joe Biden's administration said on Tuesday the first such move in months, as additional funds for Kyiv remain blocked by Republican leaders in Congress. The last drawdown was in December 2023. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that the funding was coming from unanticipated cost savings from Pentagon contracts and would be used for artillery rounds and munitions for high-mobility artillery rocket systems.
On behalf of President Biden, I'm announcing an emergency package of security assistance of $300 million worth of weapons and equipment to address some of Ukraine's pressing needs. This emergency package that we're announcing contains a large tranche of artillery rounds and gimlers for the HIMARS. This ammunition will keep Ukraine's guns firing for a period, but only a short period. This package does not displace and should not delay the critical need to pass the bipartisan national security bill.
Ukraine's President Zelensky said that he was looking forward to the arrival of a new defense package from the United States.
I also want to thank the United States and all Americans who valued freedom for their defense support for Ukraine. I'm looking forward to the arrival of a new defense package.
A ship carrying 200 tons of aid for Gaza left Cyprus on Tuesday in a pilot project to open a sea corridor to deliver the supplies. The charity ship, Open Arms, was seen sailing out of Larnaca port, towing a barge containing flour, rice and protein. The voyage to Gaza takes about 15 hours, but a heavy tow barge could considerably lengthen the trip, possibly up to 2 days. Cyprus, the European Union state closest to the Israel-Hamas conflict, is just over 200 miles northwest of Gaza. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated on Tuesday that Israel would press forward with its military campaign into Rafah in southern Gaza Strip.
We will destroy Hamas, free our hostages, and ensure that Gaza doesn't ever pose a threat to Israel again. We will finish the job in Rafah while enabling the civilian population to get out of harm's way.
Netanyahu's comments came as European Union leaders plan to urge Israel not to launch a ground operation in Rafah, according to draft conclusions of an upcoming summit scheduled for March 21st and 22nd. Let's get to other updates from the world making it to the headlines. In Ecuador, members of indigenous communities marched on Tuesday in Quito, demanding that the government comply with the court orders to halt the use of hundreds of gas flares by oil producers in the country's Amazon. Protesters demand the shutting down of 447 flares in Sucumbíos and Orellana regions. Around 70 elephants in Thailand enjoyed a special fruit feast to celebrate National Elephant Day. Thailand's National Elephant Day was initiated by wildlife conservationists in 1998 to mark the importance of elephants and encouraging the people to safeguard the species. Residents of a town located close to Mexico's massive Popocatépetl volcano honors an annual ceremony with indigenous music, prayers and offerings. The farmers trudged through heavy volcanic ash and rough rock-filled terrain to reach the volcano. Local authorities have issued a yellow alert in the area before emission of the volcano, meaning residents must get ready in case they need to evacuate from the zone. You're watching DD India Live. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, International Atomic Energy Agency chief visits Japan to inspect the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Haiti readies for the formation of a transitional council after Prime Minister pledges to step down. US expects members to be appointed by Thursday. United Nations urges gangs to silence the guns. Huge explosion destroys restaurant in China's northern Hebei province. At least 1 killed and 22 injured.
Delivery boy has picked your order.
We know you are hungry. The message notification said it would take 30 minutes.
We can't just rely on a message.
Didn't you sell some shares yesterday?
Yes.
So did you check them?
I got a message.
You can't just rely on one message. If you make any transactions in the stock market, cross-check the SMS or email you received from the stock exchange with your Demat account as well as bank statement.
Beta, when one's hungry, the brain doesn't function properly.
Soch kar, samajh kar, invest kar.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India Live. Let's continue getting you more international updates. The head of the UN's nuclear watchdog, Rafael Grossi, said that he supports Japan's push to hold summit-level talks with North Korea, even if discussion about Pyongyang's nuclear buildup is initially off the table on Tuesday. Grossi added, it is very important to engage, and there is no direct safety issue from the Ukrainian staff being barred from accessing the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Grossi is visiting Japan to inspect the Fukushima nuclear plant, where the IAEA is helping oversee the release of treated wastewater into the ocean. Grossi last inspected the plant in July last year.
It's very important to engage. The conditions of that dialogue, I would not pretend to tell Prime Minister Kishida what to do and on the basis of which premises. I would never do that. But what I can say is that engagement is indispensable.
DD India's Chris Gilbert tells us more from Tokyo.
The IAEA has a commitment to the discharge project over the entire span that's going to take 30 to 40 years. It has set up a permanent office at the discharge site. Rafael Grossi says that he is going to, or the IAEA is going to remain committed to holding it to account, to making sure that it meets the regulatory framework that was set up, to ensure that it meets the safety standards that have all been established as long as this discharge is continuing. And so he says it's entering a new phase now, of course, the phase of it actually happening, which it was not the last time he was in the country. He's already met with the Chief Cabinet Secretary here. He's going to meet with the Foreign Minister, Yoko Kamikawa, who says that Japan wants to deepen its cooperation with the IAEA. So it is the first important visit by the head of the organization as this discharge continues, out of many to come in the future. It's not necessarily a change of heart. The position has always been to divert or deter North Korea away from a nuclear program in one way or another. And the United States, for example, has always said that it is open to talks again, although it is Washington that is partly responsible for them falling apart in 2019 in the first place. And the current leadership and the current administration under Kim Jong-un of North Korea has said that it is not interested, and that is not them simply being petulant. That is them saying that they view themselves as responding to the threats as they view them that are apparent to them with US nuclear aircraft carriers parked on the Korean Peninsula and military drills going on, etc., etc. That is the norm that we've come to expect on a near daily basis now. So although it may be surprising to hear the negotiations or the discussion of negotiations into the discourse again, it has always been an option, and it has always been something that many parties in the ongoing conflict have been seeking.
Japan's Space One's Kairos rocket exploded shortly after its inaugural launch on Wednesday. The 18-meter four-stage solid fuel rocket exploded seconds after lifting off from its launch pad on the tip of the mountainous Kii Peninsula in western Japan. The explosion left behind a large cloud of smoke and a fire near the launch pad on the top of Kii Peninsula in western Japan. There was no immediate indication of what caused the explosion or whether there were any injuries. Pads typically have no people anywhere nearby during a launch. A massive explosion rocked the northern town in China on Wednesday, in which one person was killed and 22 were injured. The blast occurred at a restaurant in Hebei province at around 8 a.m. and is suspected to have been caused by a gas leak. Rescue work is underway and the injured were sent to a hospital. Video showed footage of the moment the explosion occurred, followed by thick plumes of grey smoke. The Sani City Emergency Management Bureau sent an investigation team to the scene, and the Langfang City Emergency Management Bureau said the fire department was also at the explosion site. Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said on Tuesday that although they have not rejected China's maritime proposals, but it was difficult to see a way forward. He was speaking during his working visit to Germany. The Philippines Department of Foreign Affairs said that several maritime-related proposals from China were against the country's national interests.
We have not rejected any proposals that China has made to us, but the premise is something that we question. And that premise that China has made is that their territory is follows what is now described as a 10-dash line. This is not recognized by any country, any international body, certainly not by the Philippines. Our baselines have been well established for years now. We have the economic zone that China has already intruded upon. And until that premise that China has made in terms of all its discussions with the Philippines, then it's very difficult to see a way forward.
The United States expects members of Haiti's Presidential Transition Council to be appointed in the next 24 to 48 hours. Haiti's Prime Minister said earlier that he agreed to resign once a transitional presidential council is created and a new interim Prime Minister is named. The planned Presidential Transition Council, announced after high-level meetings of Caribbean leaders in Jamaica on Monday, is aimed at representing diverse sectors of the Haitian society. Two-time Olympic medalist PV Sindhu advanced to the pre-quarters stage of the All England Open Championship after Yvonne Lee retired after the first game. Sindhu was playing her first match when her opponent, Yvonne Lee from Germany, retired in the first game itself. Sindhu was leading 21-10 and won the match by walkover. Meanwhile, HS Pranoy crashed out of the competition in the first round, losing to Su Li-yang of Chinese Taipei. Pranoy lost the 37-minute game by 21-14, 13-21 and 13-21. Carlos Alcaraz beat Fabian Marozsan 6-3, 6-3 to reach the Indian Wells quarterfinals on Tuesday. The Spaniard was in control throughout the match, pounding forehands and never losing his serve as he took another step towards defending his title in the California desert. Alcaraz continues to gain momentum at the tournament, and the victory was his 50th match win at a Masters 1000 event. The two-time Grand Slam champion is on course for a possible collision with Australian opener Jannik Sinner in the semi-finals before facing Alex de Minaur in the quarters. Barcelona on Tuesday reached the Champions League quarterfinals for the first time in 4 years with a thrilling 3-1 home win over Napoli in their last 16 second leg that gave them a 4-2 aggregate victory Early goals by Fermin Lopez and Joao Cancelo set the hosts on their way, and after Emir Ramani cut the deficit before the break, Robert Lewandowski wrapped up the win with a late third. Napoli had never beaten Barca in their previous 5 meetings, and it turned out to be a repeat of the 2020 Champions League meeting with a 3-1 home win for the Spanish side after a 1-each draw in Naples. Al Hilal on Tuesday broke the world record for most consecutive wins, wrapping up a place in the Asian Champions League semi-finals as a 2-0 win over Al Ittihad, completing a 4-0 aggregate victory. This was the 28th victory in a row for Al Hilal, Saudi Arabia's most decorated team. Al Hilal, whose players include former Fulham forward Alexander Mitrovic, have won every game since a 1-each draw with Damac on 21st September. Al Hilal, winners of the title a record 4 times, will take on Al Ain in the semi-finals next month. That's it in this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.
वर्क फ्रॉम होम, हाई सैलरी, बस एक क्लिक में। अरे वाह! अनजान लिंक्स पर क्लिक मत कीजिए। आरबीआई कहता है
जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times. Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
I want this.